Hey guys, I'm Andrew Davidson and welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. Now if you like what we do here, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe and give us a little bit of love. Click that button and help us out. Today's video is going to be incredibly difficult to get through for me and for you. Hopefully you can make it through the whole video, as today we're talking about deconstruction and code names. So I'm going to be honest with you guys about this video. I've been considering doing deconstruction for at least 2 weeks now, if not 3. But 2 reasons. One, I wasn't quite sure how to approach the subject. And 2, more importantly, I didn't think there was a single person out there that was going to sit and listen to me ramble about deconstruction theory. So I really started to think, is it worth my time setting up the camera, doing the audio, getting the lighting done, and all that stuff for nobody to really have an interest in? And I figured, yeah, that's true. But I went against my better judgment, and here we are. So I know people come to As Per My Ability because they want to hear us talk about games. They want to hear me talk about games. They want to hear a review, or they want to see what kind of games are out there. We have top 5 lists. And so there's all these other videos on our channel that are so much more about games. Now, this is my promise to you. If you can get through my little lesson, my lecture on deconstruction theory, I promise we will get to games. As I've already mentioned, the game that I'll be talking about today is Codenames. So if you can hang with me, and if I can somehow get through all of this lecture, we'll get to games, and we'll get to talking about games. So deconstruction theory, what is it? Well, it comes out of philosophy, and it deals with linguistics and language. Deconstruction theory was invented, if you will, by a French philosopher named Jacques Derrida in the 1960s. Now what Derrida said with deconstruction is, he talked about language and how there is no inherent meaning. Language is basically uncentered, which what it means is it's impossible for me to use language to convey 100% my meaning to someone else, to you, which I am trying to do right now. Language is just an inefficient tool. Derrida said that language had to be redefined, refined, and it was a constant process of refining and refining and to find meaning. So nothing has any inherent meaning. Only by placing it contextually among other things do we find its meaning, because we can see, well, it's this because it's not this. So an example of that would be, and this is a very basic one, is good and evil. You can do other ones like masculine, feminine, or chaos versus order. Binaries, basically, don't have any inherent meaning unless if they're placed in context. So there can't be anything good. There can't be good without evil, and there can't be evil without good. If we lived in a world without any wickedness or any evil, there wouldn't necessarily be any meaning for good. It would just be normal. And so by defining good, we need evil to give good like a meaning, right? It's got to be placed contextually amongst its opposites. So good is defined by what it's not. What is it not? It's not evil. And so using this in language, there's no meaning behind anything unless if it's placed contextually. And so you have to completely redefine, refine the process of me trying to use language to get a meaning across to you, because there's no meaning. And even when there is meaning, sometimes meanings are different for different people. An example of this would be the term broad to refer to a woman. A lot of people would find that meaning to be very derogatory, whereas in some parts of America, that word is not quite as derogatory and is used more used more frequently by certain people, and it's not quite as an offensive thing. Well, for me to use language, it's all completely subjective to where that meaning is going to be ascribed from. because, like I said, if I use the term, hey, who's this broad, that's going to have different kind of like contextual meaning based on who it's being interpreted by. And so I'm going to do another example to show you how uncentered language is. I have an image in my head that I need to, and that image we're going to call a meaning. And I need to get it into your head because I'm trying to communicate my meaning, and I'm going to use language to do so. So I want you to play along with me. I'm going to mention a word. I'm going to say a word, and I want you to, close your eyes or whatever you need to do and think of the word that I'm about to say in your head. Draw a picture in your head. So the word that I'm going to say is dog. Now there's absolutely no possibility that your dog in your head and my dog in my head are the exact same dog. It's just not possible. My dog could be short, could be round, fat, could have long hair or fur, short fur. Maybe the nose is longer or the color of the dog's different. Just by using the word dog, now we both can sit down and we can understand that dog is a word that's tied to an animal. But in order for my dog, which is a symbol for meaning, my meaning to be your meaning, language is not helping us here. Because I can't get you to have the same dog that's my dog. Now I can refine it, as Derrida says, you constantly are refining the process. And I could say, let's do it again. Yellow dog. Okay, cool. Now at least both of our dogs are yellow. I have a yellow dog in my head, and you're thinking of a yellow dog. But again, it's not 100% my dog. And again, I'm repeating myself. I'm not talking about dogs. I'm just using it as a symbol of like, I'm trying to convey meaning to you. And language is not helping me here. It's uncentered. It's flawed. And so it has to be refined. And we can sit and we can refine this all day until I say small yellow dog. Small yellow dog with a long nose. Small yellow dog with a long nose and big teeth. Small yellow dog. See what I'm saying? Like Derrida was basically saying, like, language is just, it's exhausting because you have to just completely refine what you're trying to do because there is no inherent really meaning to it, and it's all about who is understanding their own kind of subjective meaning, whether it's coming from their own background. Meaning, like, let's say I own a dog, so when I say dog, I'm thinking of a picture of my dog. That would be something very subjective. Sometimes it's a societal term or a term that society kind of places meaning on, like the broad example, where it's like, well, this is actually a derogatory comment or something. Just depends on where you are and what the word is and where the meaning's coming from. And so that's one small aspect of Derrida's ideas about deconstruction, about binaries, which I kind of touched on, but I'm not going to go all into the uncentered nature of language, about how words have no meaning, inherent meaning. You have to basically put them up against a bunch of other words, like we said, like dog by itself. It's hard for us to have meaning. I can't communicate to you my meaning, my dog, to be your dog by just saying dog. I'm saying dog a lot in this video. I should have picked a different symbol. But then even yellow dog, even small yellow dog, like it's just an exhausting process. In order for us to have some kind of understanding, the language has to be shared. There's got to be some kind of wavelength. I don't mean shared as in like I speak English and you speak English, we're sharing the same language. I mean the meaning of the language, which the signified and the signifier and the sign and the symbol and like all this other stuff I'm not going to get into, is so affected by other things that when you strip everything away, deconstructionists usually end up asking more questions than they do finding questions, or finding answers, like other game theories and schools of thought and philosophy and stuff like that, where it's usually asking questions and kind of coming to some semblance of an answer. Deconstruction usually doesn't come to much of an answer. It's usually just kind of pointing out the ridiculousness of language. And so by saying words, or saying one word, how can I give a meaning of, like, what do you associate when I say dog? Are you thinking of a small dog because you grew up with a family dog that was small? Are you thinking of a big dog because you currently own a big dog, and so that's just what pops to your mind? So that was one of the concepts that I wanted to hit in deconstruction theory to bring us kind of around to games. So there's just one of the many concepts around deconstruction theory that I wanted to lecture about in regards to language and just the lack of meaning, the lack of inherent meaning, because it's a very difficult thing to understand. At least for me it was, because it's like when people say words, you hear it, you hear the word, and then you symbolize what the word means, and then you're like, every word has meaning. I can interpret every word. But deconstruction says, yeah, no, you can't really. And you need to have more context. And it's so subjective, the context based on where it's at, you know? When something stands alone, it just doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have any identity. You have to place it next to something else. So if I have an object that's hard, like a hammer, and I have something soft, like a pillow, well, the pillow by itself doesn't really have a whole lot of attributes. It's just a pillow. But when we put them together and we hold them together, we can go, well, this one is definitely not like this one because it's soft. And this one's definitely not like this one because it's hard, and I can hold it. I can, like, hit things and make noise with it, whereas the pillow doesn't really make a whole lot of noise. Now, I know I'm using objects in this example, but you have to think of it instead of objects, think of it in words and, like, language. Like, this language just by itself is just doesn't have any meaning until you juxtapose it against something else. So, end of rant, end of lecture. Hopefully that's enough. It's got to be enough, because like I said at the beginning, I did not want to have this video be so long because I was really wanting people to stick with me so that we can talk about games. So the game that we're going to be talking about is Codenames, like I said. Now, I do not own Codenames. I will be using Codenames Duet as a representation for this video. This is actually not even my copy. This is Shanine's copy. Shanine is one of the contributors here at As Per My Ability, and I am using her copy of Codenames Duet for this video. So why don't we take a look at Codenames? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in regards to deconstruction theory and language, and then we'll go from there. Here's Codenames Duet set up. Now, when you set up the game, you're going to be having a bunch of words in a 5x5 grid. Each player will be taking an index card that will be secret, so they will not be showing the other player their card. And this index card will basically show what you want your partner to guess. So it's orientated the way that the cards are. So the green ones are the ones that I want to try to get my partner to guess, while the black ones are ones that are called the assassin. It will basically end the game for us. And it all correlates to, so like I want paint would be on there, a letter would be one that I want us to get, the two in the corner, so Sherlock and pizza. And so this is private, and so I will hold this, and my partner will not be able to see what's going on. They will have their own side that they're trying to work off of. So how a round works is whoever's turn it is, they will be giving a one-word clue in order, like I said, to try to get their partner to guess the right words. Now let's take a look at some of the words that we have out. The game comes with a whole smattering of them. These are ones that I laid out at random. So you have sugar, letter, soap, Sherlock, pizza, bubble, Big Ben, pad, flood, radio, paint, skull, tear, crystal, Newton, waitress, computer, river, anchor, ink, soup, lumberjack, love, collar, window, all these just random words that don't really seem to fit together. Well, the goal is to try to get them to fit together because you want your partner to guess as many as possible without getting any wrong, or even worse, hitting one of the black ones. Like, for example, soup up here would be a game end for us. So you got to be careful with your clues. So you give a one-word clue to your partner, and then you give a number, which is what it refers to. So this is where deconstruction comes in with the idea of the dog, right? Just saying dog is not enough to contextually give you what I mean. So I'm going to use the example water. My clue when looking at this board is water. Now you, having no clue, what I'm looking for, have to try to assemble some kind of meaning out of what does Andrew mean when he says water? Well, maybe there's soap over here, soap and water. Maybe that's what he's thinking of. Maybe flood. That's got to be flood, right? Because flood is all water. Or maybe it's something like totally different, like anchor. Anchor is always something that like you throw into water, right, on boats. So maybe it could be anchor, or the river, like river and flood. Those are both water. Or maybe he's going like the color. Like maybe he's going with something blue. So then I'd look like windows have sometimes kind of a blue tint to it. Maybe he's thinking of that. Or ink. Or, so when you give the word water, just like when I say dog, it doesn't fill really a whole lot in. You have to, as the other person, not the clue giver, really put together some kind of meaning and find that wavelength of what is my partner trying to say when they say water. What are they thinking? Are they thinking water like the color? Are they thinking water is in the actual like liquids, like substance? Are they thinking water in some more of an abstract concept like anchor? You don't know. You have to try to put together some sort of meaning. Now, let's say, for example, the first round you don't get it right. That's fine. You don't get it right. What the clue giver can do is then, just like Derrida said, refine the process and give a second clue for the second round. Now, again, it has to be one word, but it can go off of, just like I did in the example, dog, and then yellow. So then you yellow dog. You're refining the process, trying to get your partner to hone in on certain areas that you want them to go. So if I were to say water the first time, and I were to say boat the second time, okay, well now this process of meaning is being redefined or refined to where anchor. Well, yeah, I feel like anchor's got to be such a strong, it's got to be the one he's thinking of, because meaning is trying to come together with being, placed contextually with other words. Boat, water, things like that. Unfortunately, by doing this, you're going to run out of turns. Especially Codenames Duet has kind of a turn system where you can just kind of easily lose the game. This is a very difficult game to win. And if you just refine it every single time, you're going to run out of rounds. You're not going to be able to win. And the game scales and gets harder. There's a little bit of a campaign mode, if you will, in regards to how you set up the next game if you win or lose. It's really not that big of a draw, and it's not that important. But I wanted to set this up to talk about deconstruction and how this idea of giving one-word clues gives no meaning, really. Because what is water? What does that even mean? Only by placing it in a context like water in a ship or a boat, I think I said, does it start to, you can kind of compare, contrast, you can contextualize or give context and meaning to a word, but not just off of one. So this game really plays off of the uncentered nature of language that I was talking about. There's no way for my meaning, whereas like I want you to pick like anchor by just saying, one word. It's very, very difficult. It's getting people on the same linguistic kind of wavelength. Now, if I led my clue with boat, okay, well then maybe they'd be thinking anchor, but maybe they might be thinking something else. Maybe the boat, would represent, I don't even know, it's something else on here, like paint or a crystal or something, something else, because these words will be changing from game to game. And so there's lots of replayability. But if I say boat and they start thinking, tub, maybe they think a bathtub, like a boat in a bathtub, then I have to refine that process and go, okay, no, that wasn't correct. So then I would say boat, and then my second clue would be like water, to try to refine this process, because as deconstruction says, there is no real inherent meaning. I know I'm hitting this a lot, but it's really taking place in the form of this game called Codenames. Also a game called Password. It was a TV show game. I'm going to talk about that in a minute when I get back to my thoughts. But this is essentially how this works, at least the duet version, which is the two-player version. You'll be giving clues, trying to get your partner to pick certain words that, will correspond to your map, I guess. If you get them all within the numbered turns that the game gives you, you win the game, which is probably not going to happen because this game is incredibly difficult. If they hit one of the black ones, then like I said, well, the game's over. So that's Codenames Duet anyways. Let's get back to me talking some more about this game, about Password, and just about deconstruction in general. So as you can see, Codenames really works into deconstruction, into the idea of giving one-word clues and having that clue try to be some semblance of meaning and who it's being interpreted by. Because see, now the real beauty of, and especially with Codenames Duet, because it's the two-player, as I mentioned, it's the two-player option, you're really trying to get inside someone else's head. You're trying to give a clue that person is going to look at the grid and kind of know, like, we're on the same wavelength. But it's very, very difficult to do, and I think a lot of gamers will tell you that Codenames Duet is a very, very difficult game to win when you're not on the same wavelength. When I'm just giving that one word, like dog, as I did in the beginning of the video, well, that's really hard for you to get your dog to be the same as my dog. Well, in this game, you give the one clue, and it's really bringing out that uncentered nature of language and how, I say water, and well, what does that even mean? What's the meaning of that, and how does that correlate to what's on the board, like the grid, and like what's water? Maybe I'm thinking something blue. Maybe I'm thinking something wet. Maybe I'm thinking like bodies of water, like oceans and stuff like that. So water by itself takes on all these different meanings. It's all of them, and yet it's none of them. And in this game, you're really just using a lot of deconstruction to just hopefully get on the same wavelength and go, I think he's using water as like a color or something, and so I'm going to be thinking about things that are blue. But when Codename fails, when you fail at Codenames is what I should say, that's really deconstruction coming out, showing you, see how difficult language can be when it's not a fluid kind of discourse and being, like Derrida said, being refined constantly. Instead, Codenames says, let's just one word clue. There's another game from yesteryear called Password, where you just give one word clues and they try to guess something off of that. Again, same idea. Way back in the day, I think it was the 80s, came up with Password with this idea of deconstruction of like, I can't just say one word and have you know exactly what I'm referencing on the board or on the table or in life. I have to constantly refine what I'm talking about. And so Codenames, essentially, let me hold it up. Essentially, Codenames is a party game, except for the duet version. Duet is the two-player game. So originally, it's a party/word game. It's pretty difficult to play in regards to figuring out your clues. How can I say a word that's going to represent multiple things on the board and on the grid? Codenames is, to be completely honest with you, because I like to be honest on the As Per My Ability channel, not one of my favorite games. I believe it won Game of the Year. One of these years prior was nominated. It beat out another game that I really, really enjoy called Time Stories, which I've talked about on this channel before. And I'm not a huge fan of Codenames, which is why I don't really own it and why I've borrowed this copy. But in my thinking about Deconstruction, I really was brought back to Codenames going, that's a really good game example of some theory. And as you guys know, I like to jump into some theory, some game theory, and some philosophy and other things like that. So, to end this discussion of Deconstruction and Codenames, I'll just be talking about the game. This game, I'm sure you've seen it everywhere. They have Disney Codenames. They have Harry Potter Codenames. They have, I just saw the Simpsons Codenames the other day. They have Codenames Pictures. They have Codenames, the Marvel version. It's everywhere. The two-player version, which I have here, which is very difficult, as I've said. The game is interesting. If I can give out any recommendation, I would recommend Codenames Duet, the one that I've been holding and kind of flashing. I think that's probably your best bet when diving into Codenames. Other than that, you play in these, outside of just being a two-player game, you play in these giant, teams with your spy masters or your clue givers, and it becomes kind of more of a party game, and it's much more focused on just having fun and things like that. But the two-player version, where you're playing kind of cooperatively with just another person, trying to get inside each other's heads, get on the same wavelength. When he says water, I think he means blue, something that's blue, so I'm going to go with this. I think that's where you should probably go if you're interested in Codenames at all. If not, if you're looking for a party game that has to deal with words and giving out clues, there's a million different Codenames, themes of Codenames out there for you to check out. Did you make it to the end of the video? Well, it looks like I did. Hopefully you did too, and hopefully this video is somewhat interesting and it'll bring you back to watch some more of our videos. So again, comment, like, subscribe, give us some love. Thank you everyone for bearing with me, and as always, I will see everyone at the next video. Dog.